Okay, let's go back here. The title of this, let me bring this up. The better way would be to bring this up this way. Here we go. Okay. We're doing the dating of Messiah's death. There's actually a date on it. And it works from several angles. We're going to do the easy one, I hope. And this gets a little involved. Has anybody done the computation? Know how to do it? Has anybody done it? Oh, good. This is even more exciting because then it's hard to come back at me negatively because what I say is just pure gold, right? So we're looking at it as the triumphal entry and death. And the triumphal entry is going to be in Zechariah 9 going into Jerusalem. Okay? And then after 62 weeks, Messiah would die, he'd be dead. And we're going to get into that. And this gets a little strange. Okay. Daniel 9:24-27 prophecy really sets the time frame for the first coming of the Messiah. This remarkable prophecy sets the date for the death of Messiah and his coming kingdom. Daniel was in the Babylonian captivity in the 6th century BC. The nation Israel, the northern kingdom of 10 tribes, had gone into captivity in 722 by Syria. The southern 2 tribes, Benjamin and Judah, went into captivity to Babylon in 605. And by 586, Jerusalem was destroyed and the temple burned. This ends the first temple period. In Israel, if you're there, they call it a first temple period and a second temple period. All your better books use those expressions. They don't use the first and second temple. They use the first temple period. And the second temple period is a time span to that. In Daniel 9 verses 1 and 2, we learn that Darius of Mede was now king in the year 536 BC. Daniel had been meditating or studying Jeremiah prophecy, Jeremiah 25:11-12, which foretold of the Babylonian captivity of 70 years. He knew God's word was exact and realized that the end of the captivity was about over. He prayed, and we have Daniel 9. A messenger of God, Gabriel, brings Daniel great understanding, vision, and wisdom of the Jeremiah prophecy. So we have a big lead in here to Daniel's prayer, and they're in what we would call captivity for 70 years based on they didn't let the land rest for 70 years. So it's actually going to be 490 years as we find this out in just a few minutes. So 70 weeks have been decreed upon your people and your holy city to finish the transgression, make an end of sin, make atonement for iniquity, to bring in everlasting righteousness, seal of vision and prophecy, and know it the most holy place. Now, this prophecy concerns 2 things. Your people, the Jews only, no one else, and Jerusalem, no other city. 100%. You can't take this somewhere else. It only applies to that, to those people. It doesn't apply to church age, anything like that. It's to this and that. So if you look at it carefully, your people, the Jews, Israel as defined, your holy city, Jerusalem. These 3 things and these 3 things. The first 3 apply to sin and what we call the atonement. The second 3 apply 100% to the kingdom. Nothing else. Nothing else. Absolutely nothing else. To finish the transgression, that's the end of the apostasy of Israel. To make an end of sin, final judgment of sin, especially for Israel. To make atonement for iniquity, that's the death of Christ. Those 3 have to do with sin only, exclusively. The second 3 have to do to bring in everlasting righteousness. That's his kingdom. That's what we're heading for, is his kingdom. To seal up vision and prophecy, that's for Israel and Jerusalem, because all prophecies concern Israel and Jerusalem almost 100%. And the Messiah with that. There's other things to involve, but not that much. And to anoint the most holy place, that's the millennial temple. Is that okay? Not too difficult? Here we go. So you know and discern from the issue and decree to restore and rebuild Jerusalem into Messiah Prince, there will be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. Notice we have a second time frame. We have 70 weeks have been decreed upon your people in your holy city. Now we have 69 weeks decreed. So there's going to be 3 time periods. We're dealing with 2 of them. We're dealing with the 70-week period and the 69 period, not the last 7 years. That's going to be the trib, and we're not into that. Or we're into it. If I speak again, I'll probably go in it, but not on this one. We're doing it, computing the first section of 69 weeks. Okay, 7 weeks and 62 weeks. that's going to be 483 years to accomplish all there was. And Daniel is praying. He knows these are years primarily, so he's dealing this in years. He knows this. And so it's going to be 483 years from the time of issuing decree to restore and rebuild Jerusalem and the Messiah the Prince. There will be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. It will be built again with plaza and moat, even in times of distress. This decree was issued by Artaxerxes Longimanus, that's how you pronounce it, by Longimanus, on March 5th, 444 BC, Nehemiah 2, 1-5. And they debate it over maybe a year or two, and we'll get to that. It's so accurate that what makes it complicated is our calendar. The Gregorian calendar plus other calendars are a mess. We deal with 0 BC, minus 1 AD, plus 1 AD, minus B1 BC. It doesn't actually exist. Is that okay? Does anybody know the Jewish year we're in right now? We just went through, Rosh Hashanah was September 15th. Does everybody know what year we're in the Jewish calendar? 5,784th year. That's their calendar. So their calendar is pretty exact. You can Google this. Just Google. Google answers everything, all your needs. This decree was issued by Artaxerxes Longimanus on March 444 BC. But by this decree, the Jews were allowed to rebuild until Messiah the Prince, triumphal entry. Until Messiah the Prince, that's his triumphal entry. That's when he came into Jerusalem, Zechariah 9, okay, on donkey, if you want to be old, but dank. It could be described. The whole idea is coming into Jerusalem. Then after the 62 weeks, he'll be cut off, he'll die. This doesn't include his death. This will be after the 62 weeks. So he triumphantly comes in, and he dies about 6 days later if you want. Is that okay? So you're getting the picture, and it gets more involved, but it's just technical. Now remember, the Jews could have done this computation perfectly. What they had all these dates perfectly in tune. So they knew exactly. For us to go backwards and compute the date, as you're going to find out, takes a little bit of caffeine or other things, whatever you're into. By this decree, the Jews were allowed to rebuild Jerusalem until Messiah the Prince triumphal entry. There will be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. This is called the 69 weeks of Daniel, but 70 weeks were decreed. So we're missing that 1 week. Is that okay? So you're thinking 2 periods, 69 weeks and 70 weeks. So for the whole thing to get enacted, it's going to be 70 weeks completed. And it's only at the end of the 70th week, which we're not going to do today. Then after the 62 weeks, Messiah will be cut off and have nothing. He'll have nothing. Your Bibles are clear. He doesn't have a kingdom yet. No kingdom. Not yet. And the people, we're not in any kingdom now that Jesus has. The church is not a kingdom in any sense. The church is his body. He's not king of the church. Never was king of the church. Never will be. The church does not have a king, except for most pastors that believe they're the king of the church. And I think there's quite a few. And its end will come with a flood. That means a complete destruction. This is Jerusalem. And they did Titus in 70 AD. Okay, this is Titus 70 AD. There'll be a way desolations are determined. To the end there will be war. Folks, there's war going on with Israel. And so it's quite amazing that these even keep today. The desolations are determined. The next period of 62 or 434 years extend. This is the 62, 7 weeks, was like the 49 years to rebuild the first temple. Is that okay? And it only took 52 days to get the gates, but to do the whole temple, it's going to take that whole period in there. The next period of 62 weeks or 434 years extend most likely to the formal introduction of Messiah to the nation of Israel and is recorded in Zechariah 9:9, fulfilled in Matthew 21:4-5. After the 62 weeks, Messiah will be cut off. He'll die. We're repeating things here. Now we get into a computation partly. And some of you may have done this. As was shown in the 69 sevens, or 69 times 7, 483 years, the prophetic year in the Bible is 360 days. So 483 years times the 360 days is 173,880 days. So we have to compute the 1,773,880 days and fit that into the program of, let's say, the treaty with Nehemiah, that the Jews are allowed to go back. Is that okay? And Nisan 5, 444 BC. So we're going to do a computation for that. I know everybody's very interested in this one. Remember, the Jews have all this data. It's for them. We're going back in time, recreating the data in a sense. And this can be debated how it is, and we'll offer some things that they can do and have done. Has anybody read the computations by like Sir Arthur Anderson? Anybody? Walvoord, Pentecost. The big one, Harold Hohner, he got into dating. He's big time on this. And his newest one is in, he died a few years ago, but it's in the newer Walvoord volume of the computations. And you can do this, and it's kind of interesting, just to give you an idea, that from March 5th, 444 BC until Messiah will be 173,880 days. Everybody just said, oh, I know what that is. I know what date that is. So anyway, we're going to try to do that. So this is broken down in 2 periods, 7 weeks and 62 weeks. The 7 weeks or 49 years were most likely the years to finish the rebuilding the city. Though the walls were being 52 days, it would take much more to finish the temple and all that. Now, this is so critical to understand all this. It's huge right now. It's set up only in Daniel's prophecy, only in Daniel. Jeremiah's prophecy, a 7-year Babylonian captivity, is made the basis of a newly revealed panoramic prediction of the entire Jewish history, nothing else, complete Jewish history, the entire history of Daniel's people, the Jews, from the rebuilding of Jerusalem walls until the ultimate reestablishment of Messiah's earthly kingdom, the times of the Gentiles. That's Luke 21:24. We are in the times of the Gentiles. God transferred the kingdom over to Nebuchadnezzar. You're now in the period of the times of the Gentiles, Babylon, Media, Persia, Greece, and Rome. You're in the times of the Gentiles. You cannot set up a kingdom in the times of the Gentiles because it has to be a ruler on David's throne. And Jesus is not ruling from heaven on David's throne. David was never given a throne in heaven. God would never give David a throne in heaven. He's not going to give humanity a throne. Christ has all the thrones he wants because he's God, his creator. He can do whatever he wants. But it can't violate this. The ultimate establishment of earthly kingdom. So we have the 70-year period from the rebuilding of the walls till Christ's kingdom comes. Only place in the Bible, and you have the times of the Gentiles being defined here, and I'll give you the definition. It's going to repeat itself. There's no ruling monarch on David's throne. That's the time of the Gentiles. That's exactly the time. There's no other definition. It doesn't exist. There's no ruling monarch. When you had Zedekiah, the last king, Joachim, Zedekiah, the last 3 kings, you have the king taken down by Nebuchadnezzar. The next explains it. Daniel 2:4, the Chaldeans spoke to the king Aramaic. Daniel 2:4 to 7:28 is in Aramaic. He now speaks to the Gentiles. It's not Hebrew. It is Aramaic. It's a cognate. It's got 15 cognates to Hebrew. And this is cognitive. If you've studied any Aramaic, if you have. So he's speaking in Aramaic and he's telling about the last 4 empires. And what's happened is it goes to Christ. Dominion be given back to Christ at the end of 7 or 7:13 on, if you look at it carefully. So we have Daniel 2:4 to 7:20 is in Aramaic. You, O king, are the king of kings, to whom the God of heaven has given. This is Daniel 2:4, by the way. King of kings, to whom the God of heaven has given the kingdom, the power, the strength, the glory, and wherever the sons of men dwell, or the beasts of the field, the birds of the sky, he has given them unto your hand. This is Nebuchadnezzar. God transferred it over and has caused you to rule over them all. You are the head of gold. This begins the times of the Gentiles, defined as no ruling monarch on David's throne. No ruling monarch yet. To accomplish all this prophecy includes cannot be just a time frame for only 70 weeks. Actually, Hebrew reveals 70 of 7, 70 heptads. And that's how 7s work in the Hebrew. This is mainly because the Old Testament, the Jews thought in terms of heptads or 7s. So this 70 or 7 times is really 490. What fits in perfectly in the time is not 490 days or weeks. This total 490 years and does fit perfectly into this program. So the time period. Now we're going to do the computation. I know everybody's been waiting for this. Now we're going to do it. 173,880 days, we have to tack that on to the March 5th, 444 BC. Is that okay? Because of the time he issued a decree to restore and rebuild Jerusalem, okay, by Nebuchadnezzar, by Artaxerxes Longimanus. So we have this 100 from March 5th, 444 BC, must be converted to our calendar. This is where the complication comes in. It's our calendar. Does everybody understand that? We have to count for leap years and all this other stuff. But actually, it's kind of easy. So let's try it. The Gregorian calendar has 365 days in a year. Is that okay? Does everybody buy that? I hope. If you divide 173,880 days by this 365, you're going to get 476 years and 140 days left over. Okay? But we haven't accounted for leap years. Every fourth year is a leap year. Is that okay? So if I divide the 100, just take the 476 divided by 4, you're going to get 119 days. So I have to deduct that. But every 100 years is not a leap year. But every 400th year is a leap year. So I have to deduct 1 day from the 4. I get 3 from this 119. I come up with 116 days. 116 days from the 140 is 24 days. So it's 476 years and 24 days. I'm sure everybody got that perfectly. Wasn't that easy? You don't even need a slide rule. Just another cup of caffeine. Anyway, you can do this later. We can go through it if you want. I can repeat it again, but I don't think anybody's that interested, are we? I didn't. Well, I don't know. Now she's taking down everything over there. She's recomputing the whole thing here. Okay. So we have, it's not a leap year, but okay, we got that. So let's go over here. So 173,740 plus 116 plus 24. That's going to take us March 5th, 444 BC plus 476 years is going to take us to, surprise, 33 AD. And the reason we go to 33 AD, if you subtract the 476, what's going to happen is, if we back up a little bit, I can just back up if you will. If you subtract, what happens is from 1 BC to 0 BC to 1 AD is 1 year. So I have to add 1 year back in. So it's going to come to 33 AD. Okay, and you can do this at home. I'm sure you're excited to get home and do this computation. I'm sure Jane will know all this. She knows all this stuff anyway. So what happens is we have this to 33 AD, add 24 days to March 5th, and we have March 29th, 33 AD. Now, what they've done is go 2 different directions on these computations. They know it's around 30, 31, 32, 33, 34. They know that. That isn't even an issue. They almost all agree on that. It's almost off by year, so it's no big deal. It's still the right timing. So they went backwards and went to this period of when is Passover? When are they supposed to take the lamb and keep it? Anybody know the date? 14th of Nisan. Is that okay? But it was on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. He's raised on a Sunday. They went back and found the time schedule when that fell into that period, where you have a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday within the framework of 30, 31, 32, 33. And they said, well, we did that at NASA. Well, whatever. However you did it, they did it. And they might as well go to a Jew and go to his calendar and do it themselves. You can do it yourself. So several ways of making this computation, not just one. Dr. Newell, 50 years ago at Moody, he did the computation. He held the 32. Some hold the 33. It's really irrelevant to a point. Folks, Christ died and was raised on the 3rd day. Okay? And you can do the computation. And this is basically correct. They almost all agree with this to a point. It's off by a day or a year, and the year could be debated how you do the Gregorian calendar. So Messiah was cut off just after the 62 weeks. So Messiah was cut off after the 62 weeks. Then after 62 weeks, Messiah was cut off and have nothing, no kingdom. The 62-week period ended, and Christ was cut off in death and had nothing. Nothing was rightly his, no kingdom. The times of the Gentiles started. We're now in the times of the Gentiles. And Jerusalem will be, somebody want to read, I don't have it up here. Can somebody turn to Luke 21, 24? 21, 24. Oh, I guess I do have it. I do. I thought, I didn't know I had it. I'm sorry, I do. Okay. And they will fall by the edge of the sword and will be led captive into all nations. This is in Jerusalem. And Jerusalem will be trampled underfoot by the Gentiles until the time of the Gentiles be fulfilled. There's a lot of data in that passage. Now, Jerusalem doesn't look like it's under siege right now, but it's going to be again. So it will be trampled down again unbelievably. This is in the last 3.5 years of the trib, right? And the Greek is very powerful in that. But the times of the Gentiles runs from 605 BC, defined as no ruling monarch on David's throne. The times of the Gentiles, 21-24, the prophetic period when there's no ruling monarch on David's throne, promised by God to be on David's throne forever. But nail-scarred hands will somehow take that back. Those nail-scarred hands are going to take that kingdom back. And he has every right to this kingdom. It's rightly his. Come soon, Lord Jesus. There's a lot we can discuss in this. We know we went a little bit fast, but we don't have to be so hung up with the computations. You can get hung up in it yourself at home or do it at home. It's not that anything. Does anybody have any comments or any question that they want to share or something they want to share?